right, good evening. Man, it's such an honor and a privilege to be here with you all tonight. I'll tell you, this place here at Asheville Road really is a very special place to me for the reasons Drew said. And while it is true that I do say that about every place that I go, I really do mean it when I say it here. When I started back with Healing Hands the second time in 2017, one of the very first meetings I had was with Drew here and with Chuck at Hoover and Daniel Currington over at Palisades Church. And in that meeting we talked about what it would be like if all these churches in one area came together to partner with Healing Hands on helping people get clean water. And at the time, it really was sort of unprecedented to see that many churches in the area come together like that, and had no clue just how effective this partnership was going to be. And here we are this many years later, and just to come back to Birmingham every year and to see the passion that people still have for it, it really is something special. And I just want you to know personally and on behalf of Healing Hands just how much we appreciate you all. If you don't know anything about Healing Hands, we are a 501c3 based out of Nashville, Tennessee, supported by the Churches of Christ. Our mission is to aid, equip, and empower low-income communities all over the world. We do that through a variety of ministries. We have our water ministry, we have agriculture ministry, we have empowerment of women ministry, disaster relief, and then also a project called Magi. And so due to limitations on time tonight, I'm only going to talk to you about a couple of those, but if any of them sound interesting to you, I would ask you to go to our website, hhi.org, look those up, and if you see something that we're doing that aligns with your passion, your interest, I do ask you to reach out to us and see if we might partner together in that effort. I would like you, if you don't mind, to close your eyes or keep them open, whichever you want. I just want you to think for a minute about all the ways that you've used water today. I suspect that many of you, when you woke up this morning, you flushed a toilet, you turned on a sink to wash your hands, you turned on a sink to brush your teeth, you took a shower, you made coffee, you made oatmeal, you drank some water, you gave some water to your children, to your dogs, your cats, you washed a car, you watered your lawn, you watered your garden, you washed your dishes, you washed your clothes. I want you to try and imagine, if you even can, how much challenging your life would be if you didn't have access to fresh, clean water. Because that's the story right now for nearly 1 billion people on this planet. And so what they do every single morning when they get up is they grab a bucket, they grab a jerry can, an old milk carton, whatever it is they have that hold water, and they start walking. Some of them walk a mile, some walk 2 miles, some 5 miles. I can give you an anecdote. A few years back, we were in Haiti. We were traveling to this particularly remote part of Haiti, and as we crossed this little stream, and there were these 2 young boys, probably 9, 10 years old, and each of them had a jerry can in each hand, probably 30 pounds of water or so that they had filled up. We asked them if they wanted a ride back to their house, and they did. So they got in the back of our truck, and we drove those 2 young men 5 miles one direction. And the next morning when we were gone, those 2 same kids were going to wake up again, they were going to get those same jerry cans, and they were going to make that same 5-mile walk back to that watering hole. And that's probably all the water that their family was going to have that day. When we talk about development, we often think about science, STEM, we've got to learn English, we've got to get access to markets, all of these things, and it all makes sense, and it's all good ideas. But when does a 9-year-old learn English? When does a 9-year-old learn to read when they spend hours walking 7, 8, 10 miles every single day to get water? Now, if you know much about the water crisis, you already know that unfortunately the opportunity cost of the time spent getting the water isn't the worst part of the crisis. The worst part of the crisis is the quality of the water that they get. This is an average drinking hole in rural Kenya. This is an average water source in rural Kenya. A few years ago, I traveled to the Masai Mara region of Kenya. It's on the border of Tanzania. I met this young lady right here. She was my age, which would make her 33 now. At the time, she had 5 kids. She told me she made the walk from her house to this watering hole 4 times every single day. In this village, there were 2,500 people and 10,000 animals, and every single one of them drank out of that water source right there. They would stand there all day long in line. And they would get their turn, and they would go, and they would take it back, and several hours later, they would come back and stand in line again. There's a little underwater spring right there, so when you'd scoop it up, it would all just bubble back to the top. The day after we left this village, we went to another village where there was a young man named Frederick's a preacher there, and we have partnership with, and we were completing a water project there in their village. And while we were there, he asked us if we wanted to go see where they were currently getting their water, and we said yes. So we walked about a mile or so from the church building to what I would call a mud hole, probably about the size of this room. And while we were there were these young ladies who had walked up with their jerry cans, and they were collecting water from the pond. And there was another gentleman who had also walked up, and he had about a dozen or so cows, and they were also standing in the pond. And if you know much about cows, you know that while they were drinking, they were also defecating into the same water that those ladies were about to take home to drink, to give their children to drink, to cook with, clean with, to wash their dishes with, because it's the only water that they have. Every single day on this planet, we lose about 6,000 people to dirty water. And of that 6,000, about 90% are children ages 5 and younger, because their bodies struggle the most with the diseases that they get. Now, the part about the water crisis that I find simultaneously hopeful and infuriating is the fact that it's not some mystery that we're trying to solve. It isn't some disease that we're trying to find a cure for. We know exactly how to fix the water crisis. I promise you there are the resources and the technology to solve the water crisis tomorrow. The issue is simply getting enough people to care and to make the choice to do something about it. And when we do that, we get different images and different stories. This lady right here, I have no idea who she is. I don't know her story. I don't know her name. I don't know how old she is in this picture. I don't know how old she is now. But I can venture a guess that she spent every single day of her life that she can remember walking with her mom or with her sister or with a group of friends some many miles to collect water for their family. And then one day, out of nowhere, she had no idea it was happening. She wakes up, she goes outside, and there are these people there who call themselves Christians and put a well right there 50 meters outside her village. And now she and her mom and her sisters don't have to walk anymore. They don't have to drink filthy water anymore because some Christians decided that she's a person and she deserves it, and Jesus loves her and we love her. And now they have fresh, clean water. I'm not particularly great at math, and just to be quite frank with you, it's incredibly challenging to give you any sort of actual source material in terms of every well we drill exactly how many people benefit and all of those types of things. But I can tell you over the past 5 years, with just the funds that have been raised from the Birmingham Walk, there are thousands and thousands of stories just like that young lady right there. Thousands. Individuals who probably have never seen clean water in their life, and one day they wake up and they go outside and there's a brand new well being drilled right there in their village. They didn't pay for it. In many cases, the children had no idea it was coming. If you feel compelled by this and you want to participate, it's been made so easy for you. There have been so many individuals, Drew amongst them, who've made it possible, who've put in so much effort. All you have to do, we're going to have a Walk4Water again this year. You really just have to show up. We'll have a website. It's probably already up online. You go in, you register, and if you have some discretionary money and you want to give, you can give. You get a t-shirt, come out, walk with us. We're going to walk 4 miles. That's the average distance that women and girls walk each day to get their water. And we're just going to spend some time with each other, and we're just going to spend a day in prayer and thinking about these people and doing something to help. So if you can, I really do hope that you can participate. And it would be incredible if you could invite someone, you could tell someone about what you're doing, you could tell someone about what Asheville Road is doing and the kind of things that Asheville Road does. I promise you that people will want to hear about it. And you just never know who might show up, who might come, who might get some spiritual nourishment just from being there. So again, I can't say enough about this church, about this area, about the things you've already done, and I really do hope that it's something that many of you would choose to participate in again this year. Now, I also want to talk to you about agriculture because I love talking about agriculture, and I'll do it as quickly as I can, but it's so critically important, and it ties in with everything else that we're doing at Healing Hands. The Gates Foundation has a quote that says, "If you care about poor people, you care about agriculture." And I believe that is correct for at least 2 reasons. One, the issue of malnutrition, which is pretty obvious. Now, if you know much about the world today, you probably know it's very rare for someone to starve to death outside of combat zones and extreme situations. Most people in the world don't starve to death, yet there's still a significant problem of malnutrition. And not just talking about people going hungry, talking about people not developing correctly, talking about folks who have lifelong consequences because they didn't get enough calories when they were a small child. So that's one. Number 2, if you look at a cross-section of the world's poor, those who live on about $2 or less a day, what you will find is that about 50% of them are smallholder farmers. What that means is everything in this world that they get from growing food on the plot of land which they live. And so we know that if we can increase the yields of these smallholder farms, we can make a significant impact on global poverty. Now, bear in mind, we're making modest claims. I'm not talking about vehicles, not talking about air conditioners, just talking about getting people to the very bottom rung of the economic ladder so that they can start to think beyond simply surviving. And again, this isn't a mystery. We know exactly how to do it. We did this in the United States, we did this in Germany, we did this in the UK and in Canada and every other so-called developed nation on the planet. The way to increase smallholder yields on smallholder farms is to focus on 4 things: better seed, better access to water, better soil, and better education. And this is the bedrock of the ag program at Healing Hands. We go all around the world and we meet with people, particularly churches, or Christian schools, wherever we're invited. We show up and we teach them how to build a raised bed garden. We teach them how to use micro irrigation systems. We educate them on what to plant, on how to plant, and when they come to that workshop and they leave, they will have everything that they need in order to go out and raise the most amount of food that they can raise on their land. This gentleman right here, pardon me, before I say that, I should tell you this as well. All of our ag trainers are also preachers, every single one of them. That's where we source our ag trainers from. When this program was started, we knew we wanted this to have an evangelistic, be part of our evangelistic efforts, and so we knew we had to either train farmers to be preachers or preachers to be farmers, and we decided that the latter was easier, and so begin by partnering with Nairobi Great Commission School, and now have several partnerships, and we train these preachers to be farmers, and those who enjoy it and those who excel at it are the ones who we choose to hire to work for us, and they go back to the church that they were going to go back to, or they go to start the church they were going to start, whatever reason they were at that school to begin with, and then they work for us part-time as well, hosting these ag workshops. This gentleman here is named Jeremiah. As you can tell from the pictures there, Jeremiah was born without hands. Jeremiah was born in a very superstitious place. The village told his mother that she should take him outside the village and set him down and leave him there because he was born with a demon, and that's why he didn't have hands. His mother chose not to do that, but as you'd probably suspect, growing up was not very easy for Jeremiah. We met him in 2016 at an ag workshop in the Kisii community in Kenya. And when we met Jeremiah, Jeremiah was an alcoholic. Jeremiah was abusive. In his own words, he was not a good person. Jeremiah spent a week with us at that workshop. Everyone was incredibly excited to see just how well Jeremiah could farm, given the fact that he was born without hands. You can probably imagine how that kind of things go. People, particularly the Americans, want to take pictures with him. There's laughter. He felt important. At the end of that workshop, Jeremiah and 18 other members of the community were baptized into Christ. They started the Kisii Church of Christ. We went back to Kisii a few years later. I was actually on this trip, 2019. We're doing an ag workshop again. And I met Jeremiah myself. He came up to me. He said, I hear you're Colton. I hear you've been talking about me. To this day, I have no idea how he heard that because I've not told anyone there. But I said, yeah, that's true. I hope that's okay. He said, I hear that in America, I'm famous. I said, well, that's somewhat relative. Yeah, something like that. He said, I want you to know this. I want you to know that when I came to that first workshop, I listened to every single word that was taught. I went back to my house and I did every single thing that they told me to do to the best that I could. And that year, I raised more food than I've ever raised in my entire life. I took the proceeds from that, I went to the market, and I bought a cow. And the next year, I saved every single penny that I earned off that cow. And I went back to the market, and I bought a second cow. And so, when you go back to America, and you tell them about me, I want you to tell them that Jeremiah is the man with 2 cows. And to me, that is, I know it's anecdotal, I know it's one person, but that is the quintessential story of Healing Hands. That is what we are trying to do. We're trying to give churches an opportunity to go and be with the poorest people on this earth and to just help them with their physical needs and their spiritual needs. We had a chance to visit that church. In 2016, they started with 19 members. In 2019, they had 150. They had built those walls, they had built those pews. When we were there, they were making plans to expand those walls because they had already outgrown this building and there were so many people having to stand outside. And I believe, again, that is just a testament that when you go and you meet people where they are and you just offer to help and you show them that you love them and you don't ask for anything in return, they're going to want to know why it is you do what you do. They're going to want to know what you have that causes you to act that way. Sometimes I get lost in the numbers. I'll tell you that. And when you hear about big numbers, you hear about 700 million people don't have access to clean water. You hear about how many people we're getting clean water for each year, and then you also hear about how fast population is growing. It gets easy to think, I don't know that we're going to fix this anytime soon. This is a really, really big issue. Food security is a really big issue. Global poverty is a really big issue. But when you think about Jeremiah, and you think about that little girl, you start to realize that all of those numbers aren't numbers, they're people. And if everything we've done in this area for the last 5 years has somehow given hope to one other Jeremiah, then I think it's worth our efforts. Okay, I'm going to change gears real quickly and we're going to wrap up. I want to read a little bit for you. If you want to turn with me, it would be Matthew 25. And begin in verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all of the angels with him, and he'll sit on his glorious throne, and before him will be gathered all the nations, and he'll separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he'll place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. And the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food, and I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me." I've now been a member of the Church of Christ for 17 years. And in that time, as you might guess, I've heard a lot of sermons, I've heard a lot of classes on the topic of what man must do to be saved. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here or anything like that. And I don't mean to sound negative, but in all of those conversations, I don't know, I mean, it's possible, but I don't remember ever hearing that passage read in that context. And if I'm just being honest with you, perhaps I'm just being overly worrisome, but I do worry about us, particularly in the American church. I worry about myself, I worry about my family, I worry about all of you. I worry that there's going to be a time when each of us stand before the Lord, and some of us are going to say, "I followed the plan. I didn't say things I wasn't supposed to say, and I didn't go to places I shouldn't go, and I didn't watch things I shouldn't watch, and I didn't do things I shouldn't do." And God is going to say, "That's good. What did you do? What did you do for other people? Because you were born in the richest country in the history of the world. You had more access to comfort and luxury. You had more access to information and transportation than any human beings who've ever lived. And while you were enjoying all of those things you enjoyed, you knew of the millions of people all over the world who didn't have any clean water, who struggled to feed their family, who struggled to get medicine for their kids. What did you do for those people? And some of us aren't going to know what to say. Now, I really, really, really want you to hear me. I'm not suggesting anyone is morally compelled to come to the walk that we're going to have here in a few months. I'm not saying anyone is compelled to support some organization. There are so many good works. There are so many things to do. I guarantee right here at Asheville Road, there's something right now that's needing to get done that someone is doing 3 things because they can't get someone to help them. I guarantee there's 1,000 different ways to help, 1,000 different things to give to. I'm not saying anyone has to do any particular thing, but I do think everyone has to do something. And so, if you're here tonight and you need any assistance whatsoever, if you don't know how you'd answer that question, if there is something in your life that's given you any sorts of problems, I know that the leaders of this church would love to talk to you. So I would ask that you come right now as we stand and as we sing.